Ancient Samaria was a natural fortress, but its high walls became a cage when the Aramean army completely surrounded the city, cutting off every road to the outside world. Inside, the situation was horrific. Food had vanished, the local economy had disintegrated, and the city was down to its final hours of survival. In the middle of this collapse, the prophet Elisha appeared, bringing a message that seemed to ignore the reality on the ground. He declared that the famine was over. By this time tomorrow, he said, high-quality flour and barley would be selling for next to nothing at the very gates where people were currently starving. The king's chief officer didn't buy it. He mocked the idea, claiming that even if God opened the floodgates of heaven, such a massive economic shift was a logical impossibility. Elisha's response was a chilling promise. The officer would see the abundance with his own eyes, but he would never get to taste it. Human rationality had run out of answers. Between the prophet's word and the commander's logic, the city was waiting for something that defied every law of military and economic reality. But the rescue didn't begin at the palace. It started at the gates, with 4 men on the lowest rung of society, lepers who were dying of hunger and barred from entering the city. Their logic was simple and desperate. If they stayed at the gate, they died. If they went into the city, they died. Their only chance was to walk into the enemy camp and hope for mercy, even if it meant a quick execution. They began their walk toward the Aramean tents in the twilight, expecting to be cut down at any moment. Instead, they found a ghost town. The sprawling camp was wide open. The fires were still burning, but there wasn't a single soldier in sight. Unbeknownst to them, God had intervened by projecting the sound of a massive, thundering army of chariots and horses. The Arameans, convinced they were about to be overwhelmed by a surprise counterattack, had panicked and fled. The retreat was so disorganized that the soldiers left everything behind: their horses, their gold, and massive supplies of food. The 4 lepers moved from tent to tent, eating their fill and burying silver and clothing in the dirt to keep for themselves. But in the middle of their celebration, they suddenly stopped. The weight of what they were doing began to hit them. They realized that while they were gorging themselves, an entire city was dying just a few miles away. They told each other, "This is a day of good news, and we are keeping it to ourselves." These 4 outcasts, the very people the city had rejected, were now the only people on earth who knew that the siege was over. They ran back to the gate in the middle of the night and shouted the news up to the guards, telling them that the enemy camp was empty and the food was free for the taking. The king was skeptical, fearing it was a trap to lure his people into the open. He sent out scouts to follow the trail of abandoned gear all the way to the Jordan River. The scouts returned and confirmed the impossible. The road was littered with the clothing and equipment of a fleeing army. The threat was gone. When the word spread, the starving people of Samaria surged out of the gate in a desperate, unstoppable rush to reach the supplies. The market crashed instantly as the plundered goods flooded the city. Prices for grain and flour dropped to nearly nothing, exactly as Elisha had predicted the day before. The king's officer, the man who had mocked the prophecy, was put in charge of the gate to manage the crowd. But the stampede was too powerful. He was knocked down and crushed to death by the very people he was trying to control. He died within sight of the rescue. He saw the abundance that he had called impossible, but he never got to eat any of it. Those 4 lepers understood a fundamental truth. When you find life in a place of death, staying silent is the only real crime. Having seen the rescue, the only thing left to do is tell the city,